Hey VC, it's Matt again. Thought I would do another video. Did one last night where I reviewed "Smile" by the Beach Boys. Tonight I thought I would talk about just show some of my albums by my second favorite group of all time, and as you can guess from what I just showed there, that would be the Kinks. So just wanted to run through what I've got, which is less than what I used to have. I had quite a few of their albums, and the like everyone here, CDs, eBay came along and sold off vinyl records and replaced them with CDs, which wish I hadn't have done now. But anyway, I do have a few of them, and I thought I'd just run through what I have. The Kinks are like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in America. Their British albums had more songs, and in America they kind of chopped them up, left songs off of their releases so that they could put together kind of hybrid albums that never existed anywhere else, just like they did with the Beatles, things like Beatles' second album, Something New. Uh, but the first one, this is the American release, You Really Got Me, which was the name of their first album in England. Same cover. Um, I've got these on CD. They just did the year or two ago. They did the deluxe editions of the British albums, and I've got the earlier CDs of the Kinks too. But I didn't grab the. I've got the first album on CD on the deluxe edition, which has bonus tracks and so forth. But I didn't. Should have grabbed that to compare what's on here versus what was on the English version of this album. I'm sure it's different, but just off the top of my head, I can't say how. This is good heavy cardboard stock. I believe this is a stereo edition. I can't find anywhere on here that says stereo or mono. It's Reprise Records 6143 catalog number. I need to look that up and see if that's stereo or mono. And I don't know if this is the original pressing or not, because the Kinks, early on, they sold a lot of records in America, but by about 66 or so, they no longer, their sales slowed down considerably. Village Green Preservation Society from 68, amazingly enough, didn't even make the top 200 in America. I don't think it did in England either, which is just flat out crazy. It's my second favorite album of all time. But Reprise label for You Really Got Me, their first album. I'm not sure if this was an original pressing or not. Could be. This was, I think it went out of print around about the early 70s or so. A lot of their albums went out of print, as opposed to, say, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. You could still get all their albums well into the CD age of the mid-80s on vinyl. A lot of the Kinks, I think the only early Kinks album that was still in print in the 80s was, the earliest one was the Kinks' Greatest Hits, and Village Green and something else were still around, and Arthur. But so You Really Got Me, their first album as a debut, compared to the Beatles and the Stones, maybe not as good as either of those. Doesn't match the Who's debut, My Generation, but of course this came out in '64. The Who's My Generation came out in 1965, and music was better and different back in those days, where from year to year there were sonic leaps in changes of style and innovation and so forth that really don't see nowadays. Something like 1964 music compared to 1967, and 1967 music would have been unimaginable in 1965 or 1964. Jimi Hendrix in 1964 just wouldn't have made sense, and the Beatles singing Please Please Me in 1967 would have made sense, and that doesn't really happen anymore, unfortunately. But so it may not be exactly as great as the Beatles or Rolling Stones debut efforts, but it's pretty darn great all the same. I'm not going to go through all the songs, but The most famous one on here, of course, is "You Really Got Me." The rest of these there's some originals by Ray Davies, and there's a lot of cover versions of old kind of blues and R&B and rock and roll songs, just like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones did. "Stop Your Sobbing" is a great, probably the second best song on here, a Davies original. Chrissie Hynde would cover that with the Pretenders years later. But "Beautiful Delilah," "So Mystifying," there's "Just Can't Go to Sleep." That's another really good one, and I think that is an original. Yeah, that's a Ray Davies song, but the cover versions are pretty good. It's a great album. I really like it. Um, they would go on to bigger and better things. Um, it's kind of funny to realize that short of the Beatles and maybe the Animals, in 1964, the Kinks with the British Invasion were probably the biggest band out there. They were certainly had more early on, had more popularity and chart success than the Rolling Stones and the who wouldn't really become known in America till 67 at the earliest, 69 with Tommy at more like it. But the Rolling Stones really didn't get big in America till 65 with things like "The Last Time" and "Satisfaction." But "You Really Got Me" and "All Day and All of the Night" easily outsold the early Rolling Stones singles and albums. So "You Really Got Me," that's their first album. Now, these are all American albums. Well, mostly these are American albums that I've got. The second one, and I think this was their second American album. I would got something I could check, but I didn't look at it. "Kink Size." This is one of those Frankenstein albums that did not exist in America. Um, this was just uh, you know taking leaving tracks off of albums to create a new album. So you got on here "Tired of Waiting," which is great. "I've Got That Feeling." Of course, you got "All Day and All of the Night." "Come On Now," "I Gotta Go Now," "Things Are Getting Better." Just really can't get much better than stuff like that. And their version of "Louie Louie," which they sing "Louie Louie," something like that. Sounds kind of funny. Not as good as the Kingsmen's version, but pretty darn good all the same. The and I got these. I've had these for years, but it's in mono, so that's pretty cool. Um, and actually needs a good cleaning up. I haven't played that in forever. But the first one really got me. I believe that's in stereo. "Kink Size" is in mono. Next up, we got another American Frankenstein album, which is actually, this is a Canadian copy and a later copy. "Kinda Kinks." It's got a cool cover. Kind of a flimsy jacket. But and it is on, this is a reissue thing. It's on Marble Arch Records, which I got quite a few records. I remember back in the day that were on Marble Arch. I guess that was just kind of a fly-by-night reissue label. This I got in probably 80, 81 or so. I remember where I got this at Seminary South, the shopping mall in Fort Worth. I got it at the record store there that I can't remember the name of, that's long gone. I remember, I might even got this earlier, but yeah, I remember my buddy and me, we used to go there all the time to look at records and buy records, and there was this one girl in there that worked there that we both had the hots for, and she was kind of out of our league because we were probably 14 or 15, and she had to be all of like 17 or 18. So, but we swooned over her quite a bit, and I was always happy to see her in the store instead of the two guys with beards that worked there. But know whatever happened to her, but I can still remember what she looked like. So yet another Kinks Kingdom. This is an American only deal, or not the regular British run of albums, and it too is on, if you can see that, it too is on mono, is mono. It's not on mono. But this is "Well Respected Man," "Wait Till the Summer Comes Along," "See My Friends," "Never Met a Girl Like You Before," "Who'll Be the Next in Line," "I Need You," which is a really great one, "It's All Right," and "Louie Louie." Louie Louie makes another appearance. I guess in America you could get that several times over. Um, this is their their first kind of, in my opinion, uh, album where they set out to um, make a cohesive album as opposed to uh, some hit singles and some extra tracks. Just like the Beatles, starting with, say, Rubber Soul or whatever. Even though I'd say all the Beatles albums kind of do that, but nonetheless, Kinks Controversy, or the Kink Controversy as it's called. Bought this in Chicago in the summer of 1981 in Orland Park. I remember it's got a really flimsy cover. It's almost like paper. Uh, and this is on the Pie label. So I don't know. This is, I'm guessing, stereo. It doesn't say anywhere on here that I can see. This might even be the British version, because I think they were on Pie in England. So I don't know if you can see that. I'm sure this is a, oh no, it says mono. What do you know? So that's in mono too. And I'm sure that's got to be a repressing. It's not an original, because the cover would have been heavier stock. But yeah, I got that in a little record store in Chicago. Sadly, I sold Face to Face, Something Else, and Village Green, much to my regret now. Have no idea why I did that, but I need to track down vinyl copies of those. But fortunately, I didn't sell this one. Their other, one of their other masterpiece of their great run that I think, usually say Face to Face through Arthur. I say it starts with Controversy. Actually, with the Kinks, they're so good that you can't go wrong with any of their albums, the 60s at least anyway. I won't say that of everything they did in the 70s and beyond. But Arthur, Decline of the British Empire, which was started out to be the soundtrack to a TV show movie that never got made. It's a goofy cover of a fat kangaroo. It's kind of like a Tommy and the rock opera age, and it kind of tells a story about sort of English family, and some of them move off to Australia, and their kids grow up and go away, and all that. But one of the great albums of all time. Not to be not to be pick it up. That's what I'm trying to say. Kink Chronicles. Remember getting this at Half Price Books and Records back in the early '80s for like $4, I think. And it's got a lot of great, well, really not a bad track on there. So there you go. Then we skip ahead considerably. Low Budget from 1979, which I had shown. I don't remember where I got this. I think I got this in a record store promo or whatever, because the album came out in '79, and it was just a poster in a record store, Sound Warehouse or Peaches or something. But they let me have it. So there's that. And then we got one last record. I had a lot of their '80s records that I no longer have, which their '80s stuff is nowhere near the equal of their '60s output. Their '70s stuff is pretty hit and miss. Some of it's pretty awful, and some of it's got, there's a few good songs here and there. Their '80s return, when they were kind of a arena rock band, got real popular again for a while there, thanks to MTV and constant touring. But there's some good stuff through Give the People What They Want, Low Budget, which came before that, Word of Mouth, and the other album I can't remember the name of now. And then after that, they kind of weren't very good. But I'll show that in a second. The last album I've got, with the exception of oh yeah, wait, one other thing. And I bought this in the record store with the Cute Girl in Seminary South. I remember buying this back in 1980, and it's a French album, and it's well worn. You can see that it's got a lot of play through the years, and I used to play the dog out of this thing. And like the Kink Chronicles, it's just a greatest hits. Got a few things on it that Chronicles doesn't have. Couple of, I mean, it's got all the You Really Got Me All Day and All of the Night Till the End of the Day, Dead End Street, Sunny Afternoon, stuff you'd expect. But it's got Long Tall Sally, You Still Want Me, which were their first 245s, which You Really Got Me is a huge sonic leap from both of those, but both of those I really like. They're great. Wonder Boy in Lincoln County, and so a couple of more obscure but great tracks, and got a little bio information on the Kinks and some pictures, and here's some chart information in, I guess, England, maybe France. It's a French record, so maybe it's a French chart placement. I don't know. And there's the Kinks on the back cover and some girl typing in an office. So, here's a low budget promo thing. It is an interview album for radio stations with Ray Davies, and it just has little interviews to play, talking about the then new album in between songs if the radio station disc jockey wanted to do that. And it's Ray Davies talks with Ed Skyaki, I guess, whoever that is. The other thing is this is a promo thing from their live album 1980. It's just a sampler thing, and One for the Road, their live album in 1980. It's got 4 songs on one side and absolutely nothing on the other side, just a blank disc and blank label other than the Arista logo. And so that brings us to the last one I wanted to show, One for the Road, the live album, the album after Low Budget, the 1980 live album, which kind of saved that for last because that's the last Kinks album I've got, the latest one I've got, but it's also the first Kinks album I ever bought. So bought that brand new in 1980. I had for several years, 5 or so years up to that point, I'd been buying Beatles and Rolling Stones and some stuff like that. Knew who the Kinks were, obviously knew You Really Got Me, All Day and All of the Night, Sunny Afternoon. Didn't know a lot of their great 60s stuff because it just didn't show up on the radio in America. But I'd always thought I should get some Kinks. I'd seen their greatest hits album here and there in Sound Warehouse and other record stores and just never picked it up. Went into Sound Warehouse one day and saw this on the new release shelf and thought, I don't know, maybe. Then I got the latest issue of Cream magazine shortly after, and this is the September 1980 issue, which has a big article on the Kinks, and so I read that, and the writer, guy named Jay Kordosh, talks about the Kinks, and he goes through, there's the Cream calendar with Chrissie Hynde from 1980. That's when the Pretenders' first album was just out. But anyway, he goes through and does an album by album review of the American albums. So that really got me interested in the Kinks because a lot of stuff I had never heard of other than the obvious hits. You Really Got Me sounded really interesting. Village Green sounded, I'd never heard of that. And in the magazine there, which 1980, that album came out in 68, he said that the album hadn't charted at all and it only sold like 30,000 copies to date. But the way he described it, it sounded like something I really needed to run out and get. But first I ran out and got this, and in 1980, when I was 16, I really loved this album and played it to death. Kind of got tired of it after a while because it is kind of their arena rock phase. because the next album that I bought after this was Village Green, just a week or so later at Sound Warehouse, and that just to this day is my second favorite album of all time. Just turned my head around. And then I got I think that French album that I showed with the greatest hits and and the rest of those, and then their new albums as they came out in '81, '82, and so forth. But something else and Arthur and all the back ones that I picked up. So that's my Kinks collection, and I've got, unfortunately, a lot of holes in it to fill, and I hope to do that in the future and buy back what I already bought long ago in the '80s. But best band ever, except for the Beatles, in my opinion. I love them, so check them out if you haven't already, and we'll talk to you later.